I guess if we're going to start this, we might as well start at the beginning. So, welcome. As the daughter to the father who loved, performed, wrote, and shared music, it's in my blood. Being from this part of Texas, the world doesn't leave much room for things felt as deeply as we do for that thing we call music. So you learn to create, carve, and steal minutes, dimes, and energy from the 9 to 5 to bring the thing we have embraced as magic to the humid air that dares to suffocate the dream. It's year 9 of making magic and a mess of the order around here. It's year 9 of the thing we call Seven Oaks. So join me as we tackle, embrace, and exclaim the tales and chapters of being a venue owner. The encounters, lessons, and the fun. Episode 1. The Why. Feathers and Magnolias. When someone you love passes away, there is a shift in what matters, what is known, and who or what you are. You can be one thing your entire life, and the moment you lose the person that held you and that thing you thought you were, you start to question everything. Your place in life, your purpose, your abilities, and even the one thing that brought you together, music. There wasn't a time that I spent with my father that wasn't enmeshed in music. Waking up in the mornings, yard work, church, music. My entire adolescence was learning, singing, and eventually writing music. And many years later, I would stay in the same town I was born in and create what we have called now Seven Oaks Event Garden, a Southeast Texas listening room. It started as a house concert, and year 2, my dad was going to be our season finale. He was excited until he wasn't. I can remember forcing my dad to play that house concert. I was sitting in my driveway so I wouldn't lose signal and talking to him as if he was my 10-year-old child that had signed up for his favorite hobby and was going to back out due to fear on game day. Now, mind you, my dad had played thousands of shows in his time all over the state, but I guess in his older years, he thought no one would possibly want to, quote, see an old man sing his songs, end quote. Nevertheless, I told him he could not back out and the show was happening. We packed the living room with his children, stepchildren, a friend of his from high school, and perfect strangers. This show ended up being his last public performance. As the year 2020 would bring about the pandemic, he would isolate for a year, we would air hug in the yard, and have picnics on his porch. My dad was an extremely intelligent man, but he also knew and understood biology, and with his immune system, he didn't chance illness. So we literally lost a year with him before losing him. Midsummer of 2021, he decided he would take his wife to see her daughter's new home and also to meet his new great-grandson. Bravery, if you ask me. Somewhere in the midst of this bravery, he caught COVID. 2 weeks later, he would choose to go home and die. He was brave to the final moments. We watched him wave hello to his dogs in the driveway from the ambulance gurney and then pass away 30 to 40 minutes later in his bed. He took his last breath as I sang the gospel songs he had taught me all those years ago. And it's like full circle of the seeds we sow in our children coming back to bloom a fragrant goodbye from this world to the next. It's true what they say when someone you love passes away. It's true that you can feel them around you. In the sunset, the wind, the unexpected visits from cardinals, and even wind chimes. Shortly after my dad's passing, I was looking through his discography of music to find something to sing at an upcoming show in Galveston. And I always told him that I would sing his songs when he was gone, to which he would reply, quote, now, Courtney, not every song is meant to be sang by a woman, end quote. And I would say, I know, Dad. I'll sing the ones that fit. I settled upon a song called Bloom Where You Are and quickly realized he was the author and this was not a cover tune that I had heard him sing all those years. It was written July 17, 1989. I was 13. In the midst of my dad's passing, I was recording my 3rd album, and after seeing this song in his book of songs, I realized that the message he had been sending all those years was heard loud and clear as 3 of my songs on my current album all mentioned blooming where you are. The album had already been titled after the last song from my second album that didn't make the cut, Growing Pains. It's almost as if the universe was sending me the purpose of this album before I ever knew the album would become what it was. Within weeks of my dad's passing, it was time to lay vocals on a few of my songs. I was leaving the house and truly contemplating if I could even do any recording projects justice. Would the grief overshadow the professionalism? I was pushing in a chair at a table under the oak tree that was sitting by my car, and I found my first feather. It was a blue jay feather, and it spoke to me instantly. I picked it up, and I felt like it was a sign from my dad to go, continue, it's okay. Like an angel had dropped it. And for many months post my dad's passing, I would struggle with who I was as an artist. I repeatedly asked myself, who are you? Were you groomed to carry this legacy? Were you only looking for love by being just like him? And more. And every time I thought about this, my dad, or I would be telling someone about him, I would find a feather. I could be in the middle of Amarillo, walking into a restaurant, talking about him to my mom, a feather. Standing in a covered arena, talking about finding feathers, and finding a feather under my daughter's table where she was selling her handcrafted jewelry. Or getting all the way to Colorado and being addressed by a perfect stranger as, "Hello, Feather Girl." To which I asked, "Did you just call me Feather Girl?" And she said, "Yeah, I just thought it fit." It was like an angel sending me pieces of his wings, mementos that he was close, all the while still wondering if I was an imposter, a fraud, or even worthy of being a songwriter, or any kind of writer. In the 1 month prior to his 1-year anniversary of his death, I got the opportunity to open for Crystal Gayle at the Jefferson Theater. I had just released an album in March, and well, you're supposed to tour an album when you release one, even if it's just 8 shows in 6 months or so. The only song that I hadn't recorded was the new song that I wrote for my dad, titled The Bell. And if we are being honest, the only reason I wrote it was out of respect for him. I didn't feel like a writer. I felt like it was an obligation, but it was something that I couldn't not write. So it came easy. I played it for the first time in Colorado and then again at the Jefferson, and shortly after I would meet an artist that I was hosting here at Seven Oaks. That artist's name was Winston Cook, and upon hosting Winston Cook, I noticed he had 2 tattoos on his forearm, just 2. And I asked him, "Is that a feather and a magnolia?" Now, I must stop right here and say that my dad planted magnolia trees when my daughters were born. He is buried beneath a magnolia tree and in a cemetery called Magnolia Cemetery. So the magnolia sitting next to the feather spoke to me. I said, "Is this a magnolia and a feather?" And he looked at me, and I can still see his face, and I remember where we were standing when he spoke the words, quote, "It's a magnolia and a quill." And I immediately got chills over my body, and it was like I had kind of a revelation that I hadn't been finding feathers all this time. I was finding quills, which were to remind me to write. To believe that I had a gift, and so here we are. The brink of my 4th album comes out. We're doing a live recording in April, and it's called Write It Down. That's the title song. And it's the beginning of 3 Seats and 7 Oaks, this podcast. So I was originally going to do a memoir of being a venue owner, and a friend inspired me to start a podcast. One question that we get or we give to our artist in the listening room is, if you could fill 3 seats in this room, who would it be? And you instantly get to know the artist, where they are and who they are in their life at that moment, and who they long for or wish to share their talents with. And so 3 seats in Seven Oaks, there's magic. And the number 3, there's magic in the number 7. And it's you, me, and the stories. So, welcome.